Hey there everyone, I'm meteorologist Cassie Nall, and this is your 10 weather impact recap for the week. Let's start with a look at some of the top weather stories from around the country. In Hawaii, Kilauea volcano erupted again on Monday with a fountain from the north vent spewing molten rock 650 feet into the air. This was episode 48 of an eruption that began in December of 2024, but this particular event made history by setting a new record for the number of episodes during any single Kilauea eruption. Now, this most recent episode lasted for about 9 hours, and toward the end of the event, a shower moved across the Big Island. So, as the rain fell on the hot lava, steam danced around the lingering fountain, creating a very unique view from the live cameras. Look at all that steam in the white right there. It's just so cool. And from fire to ice in Colorado, that's not snow, that is accumulating hail. On Monday, folks in Aurora had to get creative to clear piles of hail off the roads after a storm dropped copious amounts of the frozen precipitation on parts of the Denver metro area. This bobcat sort of worked. Hail is a major concern for the Mile High City. The stones are either massive and damage vehicles, or you end up with a high quantity of small stones, like in this situation. At times, the city has even had to bring out the snow plows to clear roads after strong storms. Although parts of Colorado received some much needed moisture during the spring season, the impacts from record low snowpack during the winter are already being felt with low water levels across the state. Now, one organization is offering to pay farmers to leave water in the rivers rather than using it to irrigate their fields. Colton Chavez shares the efforts to conserve water heading into the hot summer season.
In an average year, we still have rivers in need, but this year we're going to see it.
Colorado Water Trust says they don't like what they see when it comes to this year's river levels.
What we're seeing is the threat of rivers going completely dry.
Kate Ryan runs the nonprofit and says it's caused by Colorado's record low snowpack this winter. So this summer, she's asking people who depend on water to share it.
So most farming and ranching does pull their water from our rivers, and that water is melted snow.
Kate says the nonprofit is offering farmers short-term paid agreements to leave water in the river instead of diverting it to their fields, with legal protections in place so their water rights aren't permanently affected.
We also have 25 ongoing projects around the state. And so we are going to be putting water back into rivers this year for sure.
But Kate says even that won't be enough to keep things rolling.
Even some of those projects that we normally would operate, there may not be enough water to even get down the stream to where we would be protecting that water in the river.
She says for farmers already facing a tough season, leaving water in the river might actually pay more than using it.
We have a rancher who we've worked with in the past, and he puts it really well. He'll be like, well, you know, some years, he says, my barn is full of hay and my wallet's empty. So yes, I definitely want to do it.
For the Colorado Water Trust, they say how they're going to measure success for this year is based on what a select few rivers look like. The Colorado, the Yampa, and even right here at Boulder Creek. And if it works, Kate says she likes what that could look like.
Hopefully the types of projects we work on at Colorado Water Trust are great for rivers.
And great for both sides.
But they're also good for agriculture and the economies and communities that depend on it.
From Boulder, Colton Chavez, 9 News.
In Kansas, tough times could be ahead for some farmers in America's heartland. Weather conditions have set the stage for a wheat crop that could be the worst in more than 50 years. Kate Devine shares an update from the Central Plains.
Walking through the beautiful Kansas wheat fields this time of year, you'd usually see tall green stalks. Brian Bates says this year looks different.
You can see how short it is. Not even in this spot right here, not even to my knees. But you get out here a little ways, it's a little bit taller. The heads in this field aren't bent down yet.
Bates has farmed his entire life in Conway Springs. He says the crop got off to a strong start last fall. Then the rain stopped.
We were running out of moisture. Late February would be it coming out of dormancy. And then, you know, just very, very little rainfall in April and May when the crop needs it the most. We just didn't have much at all. So that has presented its own set of challenges.
The USDA says this year's wheat production is forecast to drop 21% from last year. The agency says it could be the smallest wheat crop in the country since 1972. Especially in Kansas, one of the top producers of wheat in the U.S. Bates says unusual heat made matters worse.
We've had warmer than normal temperatures during those times, some 90-degree temperatures in April and maybe some 90-degree temperatures in March.
The dry conditions have also pushed harvests earlier than normal.
In my life, we've only cut one time in May that I can remember. More often than not, as a kid, I remember we would be starting harvest on Father's Day, and so getting a start here end of May, 1st of June is just really unusual.
And while farmers are expecting a smaller crop and an earlier cut, Bates says they're not giving up hope.
Farmers, I think, we're always optimistic that the crop is going to be better than what it looks. So I'm hopeful that it looks better, it yields better than it looks.
We appreciate that positive attitude. Back here in East Tennessee, heavy rain caused flash flooding last Thursday morning in Cocke County near Bybee and Parrottsville. While these were not the same areas directly impacted by river flooding during Hurricane Helene in 2024, for the people across the county, the rising water triggered a similar feeling of fear and uncertainty. Lauren Lovett talked to one woman who says the event from last Thursday isn't the only devastating flood her family has survived. They also faced the loss of their home in a different location almost 2 years ago during Helene.
2 different floods, both hitting the same family.
We were victims of Hurricane Helene. We lived in Cosby. We were donated a tiny home through Empower Cocke County. And my son-in-law had this vacant property, which it was a mess, but we went and cleaned it out, and he let us move onto the property with our tiny home. And then we were struck again.
Becky Miller says after losing her home of 15 years in 2024, she didn't expect moving 30 minutes away would result in a similar scene.
It was very heartbreaking. This one hit us harder. Helene, I think it was because we had a warning that, something was going to happen. It was overnight.
As floodwaters rose in Parrottsville, it took her back to 2 years ago.
The water was so swift, it picked up a cast iron tub and just slung it across the yard like it was nothing. This morning, that thought came back into my head. I'm like, oh no. And then when I saw the box truck had been toppled over, I'm like, oh no, not again.
15 minutes down the road is Bybee, another community that faced flash flooding Thursday morning.
Looked out the door and it was chaos. For back here, it was just a raging river. So, and the mudslides are the biggest issue.
Dallas Short was on the other side of things 2 Septembers ago. We covered the charity he started to help fellow veterans recover from flood damage after Helene.
It's crazy being on the opposite side of it because I helped people during the floods. It's hard to accept help, but it's easy to give it.
Both say their resilient county will recover from this storm just as it has all others in the past.
In western North Carolina, recent heavy rainfall also impacted 2 towns still recovering from 20 months ago after Hurricane Helene. Taylor Thompson talked to leaders in Lake Lure and Bat Cave after they dealt with more flooding over Memorial Day weekend.
The lake fared very well for the amount of water that was coming in. We were able to maintain those lake levels and keep all systems within normal range.
Dustin Waycaster says they put in several protective measures since Helene and have managed to put their warning siren weather alert system back online.
We actually had to utilize it the other night during the heavy rainfall on the western end of the county.
He knows the fear those sirens bring to residents because he has his own fears too.
It wasn't really the sirens going off or anything like that. It was just seeing the amount of water and the debris that was, flowing into our lake right after we just got finished opening up.
What do we want to do today? We want a tube, I know that.
The lake opened Memorial Day weekend, 20 months since Helene. Mark Helms just got back on the water.
I didn't think I had any PTSD from Helene, but for sure, my wife and I have a little creek in the backyard, And I came home that night, and I always just look out there as a barometer. I'll bring I'll bring skis, and I'll bring wakeboards. What size shoes you wear?
Helms and his wife run Lake Lure Adventure Company. Seeing his creek rise brought back a lot of emotion.
For sure, there was a fear of, oh Lord, what's going to be in the lake tomorrow morning, or are the roads going to be okay?
That panic stretched over into Bat Cave.
We went from drought and fighting wildfires to flooding.
Steve Freeman says response is unfortunately second nature now.
You just got to go with it. We were more concerned with anybody in danger, so we started rushing around before we even got the first call. Start making people aware. That's the main thing with it all. That's what saves lives.
Both communities are thankful no one was hurt while cleanup continues.
Nobody that was here during Helene will forget it anytime soon.
May has come to an end, and last month was all about streaks. We had almost 2 weeks without measurable rainfall during the first half of the month, followed by almost 2 weeks with daily showers and storms. Even with the unsettled pattern, May finished with only a half of an inch of a rainfall surplus. It's also the first month with a rainfall surplus since last October, which explains why we still have ongoing drought conditions. Temperature-wise, even with 3 days with highs in the 90s, the final month of meteorological spring finished just slightly above average. However, when you factor in that April was the warmest on record and March was tied for the third warmest, this year's meteorological spring was the second warmest on record, just barely behind 2012. Now, June 1st also marked the beginning of meteorological summer, with average highs rising into the upper 80s through July and mid-August. Outlooks for the month of June show chances for near average temperatures and also near average precipitation. So I guess we'll just kind of have to see how things go this month. Now, the rainfall that we had at the very end of May was beneficial to the dry conditions that we've had across the region, but it wasn't enough to completely erase the ongoing drought. We are going to need several months of above average rainfall to achieve that goal. Lake levels also rose over the past 2 weeks, but are still running well below normal for this time of year. Here's an update from the Tennessee Valley Authority and a look at how they think things will go this summer.
Hey everybody, this is James Everett with TVA River Management. We're out here at Douglas Dam in East Tennessee. I wanted to give some folks an update on what we're seeing with drought conditions and lake levels now that we're in June. Now, we've seen some rainfall recently. We've actually seen in May about 3 to 4 inches of rainfall. And so rainfall has been close to normal for May, but what we saw is that the runoff has been well below normal. And so the runoff is actually the amount of the water that actually ends up in a reservoir system. So for about 3 inches of rainfall, we got most of this around Memorial Day weekend. We only saw about a ½ inch of runoff, so very, very low runoff totals. Now, what does that mean for the drought? You know, we're still in the grips of a drought. We're seeing moderate to severe to extreme drought still across the entire Tennessee River Valley. The drought remains. We're continuing to manage the river system for a lot of different benefits. A couple of those is going to be for water supply and water quality. And so now that we're in June, the lakes aren't quite as full as we'd like them to be, but we still have to release water to meet other needs. There's 5 million people in the Tennessee River Valley that depend on this system for drinking water. We have to supply water below these dams to fulfill water quality needs. That's immediately below the dam for fish habitat and communities right below these dams, but also for water quality across the entire system. And so lake levels this summer may be drifting down as we're releasing water from dams to serve those purposes for water quality and water supply. And so as water levels drift down, want to encourage folks to be extra cautious, be safe out there on the reservoir system. There may be shallow areas, there may be exposed hazards that folks aren't used to seeing for this time of year. So we're going to see some lower than normal lake levels as we work our way through the summer.
June 1st marked the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season, which runs from now through November 30th. Activity typically ramps up through the month of July, with the climatological peak of the season being on September 10th. Early in the season, we have to watch areas close to home for potential development, but as we get deeper into the season, more and more of the Atlantic basin becomes favorable for tropical systems. Early outlook suggests that we may have near to slightly below average number of storms this year, but we actually have conflicting factors when it comes to the environment influencing this forecast. A strong El Niño is expected to develop throughout the summer season. But this large-scale pattern would typically boost a number of storms in the Pacific while helping to limit development over here in the Atlantic. So that factor would normally indicate fewer storms. But at the same time, Water temperatures are expected to run above average, which provide fuel for the storms, and trade winds may be weaker than normal. So those two factors would typically indicate a more favorable environment for development. So we'll just kind of have to watch and see how things go. At this moment, while we're recording this segment, no tropical development is in the forecast at this time. Let's get a check of your 7-day forecast here for East Tennessee. We get to have dry and quiet conditions through the end of this week. Temperatures rise back into the mid-80s as we go throughout the weekend, and by Sunday, we'll reintroduce daily rain chances back into that forecast. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can get the latest forecast and watch our 24/7 live radar anytime with the WBIR app. You can download that app for free and watch on your TV.